Hiya guys, and welcome back to Wade's Workshop. Now this is an odd one. It's going to be Shed Talk 19, which you probably have already seen, 19.5. A bit of an appendix or an add-on to Shed Talk 19. And the reason for this is we had a lot of response to the various designs I come up with, the Plan A and Plan B, for the little locking rings for the height adjusters on the tool holders. Now, I wasn't really happy with the Plan B, which was the second design, and I certainly had other ideas in store for future reference. But because the comment level was so high, I thought we'd address a few of the comments and move on from there and try and improve it a little more. So, let's show you where we are. I'll show you a few of the comments and we'll go from there. So if you've watched Shed Talk 19, you will have seen this was the Plan A, which was basically a slit in the nut with a thread in this half, clearance hole in this half, little counterbore, and an M3 bolt squeezing the two halves together. Now I did find that the M3 bolt wasn't strong enough and I've had to slit through from the back. So with Plan A, a suggestion was made to me. I've got another one here that's slit in the same sort of style. Instead of cutting through from the back, to cut deeper through, so more than the halfway mark, and cut deeper through in this way, and that would allow the two halves of the thread to clamp. And yes, that would work, I'm sure, a lot better and would look a lot nicer than this design, where I've cut in from the outside. However, I have come across a little issue with this sort of side clamping, and I'll show you that now. With the Plan A, I haven't got it tight. As you can imagine, with the clamp bolt being on the side, if it sort of ended up in that orientation, I wouldn't be able to lock it off because all this lot's in the way, in position once I've adjusted it. I mean, yes, I could sort of just pop it back out, clamp it up and drop it back in again, but that would annoy me over time, I'm sure. And the sort of top clamping method is I think more practical, you know, as time goes on. So I'm doing away, even though there were some good suggestions as to ways to improve this setup with the sideways slit, I think I'm going to go for the clamping in the top instead. So moving on to what we called Plan B, which was the sideways slit in the clamp, in the adjusting nut, the sideways slit beyond, I don't know whether you can see there, beyond the thread, and then a clearance hole in this top half and a threaded hole in the bottom with a screw to clamp it down. Now this works absolutely marvellously. Marvellously, is that a word? Well, that's the one I'm using. It works well. However, I just don't like the look of it, or didn't when I first did it. I mean, it's okay. It works perfectly. It does exactly what I wanted to do. But I do like things to look nice. And a few suggestions, or the comments that I got, and this was a regular one. I think 3 or 4 people commented the same thing. That at the moment I've got a tapped hole in the bottom, a clearance hole in the top, and obviously I've gone up to a bore mill screw, which I prefer. I don't like using the small Allen keys unless absolutely necessary. And obviously this worked by just clamping and deflecting the top half of this ring down, which tightened the threads up and stopped rotation. In fact, I haven't locked that off yet, but yeah, that is now locked. I just didn't like the look of it. So the suggestion made to me was, and actually part of the design when I did this, was that I left more meat in the bottom to stop this deflecting, to keep this the stiff part so that just the top moved. The suggestion was not to put a threaded hole in the bottom, to put a tapped hole in the top half, and that would allow me to put a grub screw in. And then if I tighten the grub screw, instead of clamping these two halves together, it would push them apart, causing the same locking effect with the thread. So I'm going to knock one of those up now, and we'll go from there. I just put the parting tool up, and I've come back to leave 3mm of material on there. So yeah, I'm just going to do a little groove in here. That should do me. And I think I'll put a little chamfer either side of the groove, so I'll just swap tools over now. Oh, let's have that one out of the way. I don't know if I can get in there with my 45-degree tool. I think I can just get in there. Sorry, bumping the tripod here. Yes, I can. I'm working again. Let me just... yeah, we're all right. Just put a little chamfer on those knurls, and I'm going to hacksaw down through that slot next. So yes, much the same as I did it on the first ones. I just dropped the hacksaw in that groove there, and I'm going to hacksaw down to about 1 millimetre beyond the threads. It was again another suggestion. Somebody said, oh, well, to do it properly you should use a slitting wheel and so on and so forth. Obviously not a regular watcher of my channel. I haven't got a slitting wheel, simple as really, and I haven't got an arbor for a slitting wheel, and I haven't got a milling machine. That would take a whole complete different setup. When I get my milling machine, that's one of the things, little projects I'll be doing. So yeah, in the absence of a slitting wheel, or a slitting saw I should say, we'll resort back to the old-fashioned way and do it with a hacksaw. So I'm just starting gently now, following that groove, and I'll bring you back when we're done. So I squared the part up in my little vise here. I just used my rule for that. Yeah, in the slot, to square up the bottom of the slot. I marked out a position in the centre of the wall thickness here, and I'm going to go, well, I'm going to start off with an M4 grub screw. I'm hoping to get an M5 in there, but so yeah, I'm just going through the one wall, and that's it. So I just need to tap that top hole now with the M4. So we've got the M4 grub screw in there now. Only drawback is it's a 2mm Allen key now. We've gone down to the small Allen keys, which I don't particularly like. So yeah, let's just try the spreading the top and bottom halves away by tightening the grub screw. That's as tight as I can get it practically. And yeah, there's just not enough force in the grub screw. Let's just try an M4 bolt in there where I can get a bit more purchase on an M4 bolt with a larger Allen key. Just take that back out again. Whoop. Yeah, so that's the, oh, I said goodbye to that grub screw. Let's just try an M4 bolt in there. Oh, wrong Allen key. Where are you? Where are you? Hiding Allen keys. Here we are. And just come down a couple of turns. I don't want to be locking off on the base there. Yeah, I mean, it's pushing them apart doesn't seem to lock it as well as squeezing them together. So although I like the look of the grub screw in there, with it being flush, I'd probably have to go up to M5. I've only got a very thin wall thickness on the top, is another problem. And it's got to be thin to allow the deflection. So yeah, I think of the clamp and split type designs, I think the M4 clamp bolt is better than the in practice. Then I prefer the look of the grub screw, but it doesn't work in a practical way. Whereas my original plan B, which is this type with a clearance hole and a thread in the bottom, seems to work a lot nicer. So just pull that out. Again, another suggestion I've had would be, instead of using a cap head, to use like a button-headed one. Now, some of the button-headed ones have a smaller Allen key. You know, the little dome-headed Allen bolts, instead of cap screws, use a smaller Allen key. And I don't want to go down the route of a smaller Allen key. You know, it's just one of those things. I don't really want to go down that route. So, yeah, I mean, so far, of all the options we've explored, there we go. Yeah, that's tightened on there. That has squeezed the two halves together, and it locks off nicely. That's way too far down, but let me just... That's actually more like its normal working position, would be around that height somewhere. And I pull it up, yeah, I mean that's locked. Of all the options, as I said, this works the best. Another thought that I'm having, going back to the side cut, I keep having strange thoughts on this matter. Instead of slitting it, I could drill through from the side and put a grub screw in the side that clamps directly on the thread, and maybe on the bottom of the grub screw have a little brass slug, perhaps even a thread in the brass slug, by pushing them through so they protrude into the thread slightly, and then tapping it out, and perhaps having one both sides. So if I drilled a hole right through, let's say, probably get away with M5, and then put like a 4mm brass slug in either side, grub screw in either side, and that would mean that wherever I was on the rotation, I could still get to the grub screw to tighten up on the bolt. So yeah, I mean, an M5 grub screw would be, I believe it's that size again. It's the forget what size it is now. I think it's the 2.5 or 3mm Allen key. So we'll look at that next. So I've just drilled it, set it up all nice and square, and I'm going to drill it through with a 4.2 drill right through the part and out the other side. So I'll pass through the M6 thread. So I think next procedure is going to be to tap it right through with the M5. So yeah, tap both sides M5 just to see what it looks like. I put some M5 grub screws in. And again, it's the 2.5mm key, so that's not too small. And I'll just do the slightest nip. I don't want to damage the thread at this stage. And the slightest nip locks it solid. I mean, it literally is the slightest nip, which you would expect. I'm forcing directly onto the thread, but it does lock it solid. So I think all I need now, as an improvement for this, as you can see, the grub screws go in, oh, a good, I don't know, 4mm below surface. So some small brass slugs in the bottom of the holes before the grub screws that go against the thread, and I think we've got it. Now the brass slugs won't fall out, because once I put one of these on, that's it. It stays there. It's only for adjustment. Unless I take it right off, then I might lose the little brass slugs. But I think I've pretty much got something that looks a lot nicer, easy to lock off in an exact position. So say for instance I set my tool there. Ooh, let's just undo that screw. I could wind down to just touch on the top of the tool post, just snip that up, and that is now locked there forevermore until you loosen the grub screw. So I think we shall call this Plan C, and I like the look of this far better than any of the others. So yeah, I think that's the method I'm going to go with. So I'll turn up a couple of brass slugs now. Got a piece of brass up in the collet chuck, and it needs to be around, well, I drilled the holes 4.2 for the M5, so the diameter, if I said 4.1, and I'll try it in the tap holes. So yeah, let's just eyeball a size. I'll take a little spin pass over this. In fact, I'll just hand feed this. I'll just take a small pass over that just to see where I am. I reckon that's somewhere around 5.5mm there. I don't know. Let's have a look. .4. Okay. Just set a 0 on my DRO. I'll take 0.5 aside and then we'll have another measure. Obviously I'll have to make quite a few of these if I decide on this method, but quick and simple to make. Right, that will have reduced it by 1.2 mil approximately. Probably go a bit faster than that when we're getting smaller in diameter. Okay, that should be about 4.2-ish. 4.15. I'm going to give a little scratch more. Let's try that. That is a scratch. Okay. Let's have another measure. Yeah, that's coming out 4.09. I'll just try it in the hole, so I'll just pull one of these. Where is it? Where's the one I wanted? Where's the one it's going to go into? I haven't got it anyway. I've hidden it. There it is. I knew it was around here somewhere. I'll just pull that grub screw out. Ah, more fingers and thumbs today. I got the wrong Allen key. So I'll just pull the grub screw out of the hole. Put that to one side for a minute. Just see if that fits. And it does fit right down through the threaded hole. Yeah, I thought it would. So I now want to part two pieces off, and I'm going to say, let's just have a look. I'm not worried if they're a little long, because I've got a plan for that. I'm going to part two pieces off 5 mil long. So I'll just put a little chamfer on the end of there. Where's my chamfering tool? There it is. Okay, that should do it. And I've set the parting tool to height with the plan B height adjuster. Okay, so what did I say, 5 mil long? So just touch on the end of there, get a 0 and go back 6.5 it's going to have to be. Lock the carriage and part that one off. That looks a little long. I'm going to part them off 4 mil long. I'll go to 5.5. That's more like it. Okay, so we'll part that off. Before I go right through the bottom, needle file out. I have got a handle on it. Just break that back edge a little as well. It may leave a little pip on here because it is brass, and I didn't lose it. I got it here. Just pull it out. And there's a little part. So I'll just quickly knock out another one of those. Okay, so that's, I don't know whether they show in shot, I think they do. That's 2 of those machined off, and they've got a little pip in the bottom where they snapped off. So I'm now going to fit those to my little blank. So I've just placed a little brass slug in the bottom of the hole. I got an M6 tap in there, and the grub screws back in. And where is it? Grab the correct Allen key. Okay, now that Allen key, grub screw stuck out a mile at the moment, so I'll just use the M6 tap. Come out again, right, okay. And I'm just basically machining a thread on the end of the plug by winding the tap in and tightening the grub screw. I'm just letting the grub screw follow the tap. Just wind it off, bring it out a bit, otherwise I'll run out of tap. But yeah, turning the tap, machining the end off the grub screw into a thread form, while gradually tightening up the grub screw till the grub screw gets flush with the surface. That's really the real reason why I wasn't too worried about the length of the, I think that's it. Too worried about the length of the brass slug, because I knew I was going to machine it off with a tap. And there we are. So, I've actually already done the other side. So I've now got two half nuts, shall we call them, of brass that will clamp against the grub screw when it goes in. So we'll just, without tipping it up or doing anything daft with it, I'm just going to hold it like that and put it onto one of the grub screws in the tool post. I don't know how well I can show this. Yeah, can you see the piece of brass? Like a little half nut that is threaded inside there. So if I just screw it down on there, okay, grab the Allen key, so say that was the height I wanted, nip the grub screw, that didn't go in anywhere, and if it was at the point where that was around somewhere where I couldn't get at it, I can now use the one on the other side instead. But when I say nip, you've got to give it a little bit more than that. There we are, locked solid. I think, guys, I have my final plan. It's plan C. I like it. It's quick and simple. I mean, you're not adjusting these all the time unless you're changing the tool bits all the time in them. Little grub screw in the hole. I mean, it literally is just the smallest of tightening, and that is locked solid until the next time you want to move it. And a lot more control. I can hold it right there, right where I want the height, and that's it, it's fixed. So that's plan C, and I think that is going to be my final plan. Just a little afterthought on the design. I'm just doing up the second one now. I'm going to basically tap away the profile in the end of the brass slug so that the grub screw goes slightly below surface. Basically because, let me just bring that tap out a bit, running out of tap. Okay. Basically because only one of these grub screws is going to be tight at any one time, because you can only get to one or the other. And with it being on the tool post and tool vibration, all the rest of it, there we are. Now that is below surface there. There we go. And what could happen is that while you're using it, the little grub screw could vibrate its way out of the hole, and you not only lose the grub screw, you probably lose the brass plug as well, and that'll just be annoying. So what I've done is machined away the brass so that with the end of the tap, so that the grub screw is slightly below surface, and I'm simply then I'm going to put a grub screw in the hole so that I don't so that those brass plugs don't fall. They probably won't, but just to keep them in orientation so they don't fall out. So yeah, now that the grub screw is below surface, I'm just going to take, I have got a tiny centre punch here, a little centre punch, and I'm just going to stake the end of the hole. That should probably do it. Let's just try it on the return stroke now. Yeah, it's tight there, and it goes tight again. That's it. So that with vibration, the grub screw doesn't come back out again. So I think now that we've got this form of adjustment, let's give them a try. So this isn't adjusted at the moment. It's just using the end of this piece of brass. Alright, I can see that my tool is low. So I'll just raise up a touch. Still low. Oops, come off the job. Not safe to loosen the tool off there when I'm still on the job. Let me just get in shot. I'm sorry about this. Touch more high. And I'm just machining this down. That's still a bit low. There's a tiny centre pip in there. That's gone. Do it once more. Yep, that's flat. Okay, so now that that is set, I'll just tighten the grub screw. Oh. I'm going to take the tool out, put the tool back in again. I'll just make sure I haven't got any dirt under it. No, we're alright. And just double check it, try it again. Yeah, that's perfect. So yeah, quick and simple to adjust. I like the look of it far better than all the others. So yeah, plan C is a happy plan. I did something the other day, which when I reviewed the video, I was a little bit concerned about. And what I was doing, I had the lathe tool here. I did have the 3-jaw up at the time. And I was facing the sides of the knurled nuts. Now, I was screwing them on and off here, facing them, what have you, putting champers on. And I got a sharp lathe tool here. In fact, this one is a sharp one. It's got the ground tips in, and these tips are sharp. Always best, I mean, I've got the luxury, and what I should have done is just taken the tool out of the way when I was changing them round, spinning them round from one side to the other, that sort of thing. Just so that there was no danger of me catching the back of my hand, anything like that on the lathe tool. And I could just pop it back in and carry on working. What I did, I just wound it back to somewhere like here and turned it round. I know it's a sharp unit there. I've been working on lathes for very nearly 40 years now, since the first time as a young apprentice I ever operated a lathe. But yes, I didn't take the tool out of the way. I know what I'm doing. I'm experiencing this sort of thing. But as a beginner, if you got the opportunity, I mean, I've got the quick change tool post. I can take the tool out, put it back in. My other option would have been just to wind back there, tools out the way, no problem. So yeah, just be careful, guys. Wear your safety glasses. I've got my sleeves done up. I mean, it's not strictly necessary to have you know, rolled up sleeves, that sort of thing. If you've got long hair, keep it out the way. There's 101 safety things on the lathe, and I suggest you look up all that before you even switch your lathe on. But yeah, I was doing this. Somebody called me over on it. Actually, they were quite insulting. They didn't actually mention what I was doing, but when I look back at the video to see if there was anything iffy, that was one of the things. And I'll show you another thing that I was doing, which I wouldn't recommend. Just covering myself here, basically. So I had the tailstock up, and again, it was the same components, and I was changing between, I don't know what I had up at the time. I think actually, let's get the actual tools I was using. I was changing between a centre here. Now, as you know, it's not a very big lathe, and I can't slide a long way back. And if I got a part here and a 3-jaw chuck, and I'm popping my centre out, I actually had the lathe running when I was popping them out. Now, yeah, I mean, if I didn't know what I was doing, or I was new and I just had a blank moment, I could have caught my hand and the centre in the chuck. And again, I changed back over. I'm actually doing it here again. But yeah, I changed back over, and I actually had a drill bit in here. Now, if I didn't pull right back with a drill bit, that, as you pull out, is going to get close to if I had a 3-jaw chuck in there. I was watching what I was doing. I was being very careful with it. As I say, I'm vastly experienced at this. But that doesn't mean to say that everybody is. So yeah, that's probably not the best practice. If you're changing a tool in the tailstock, or in between operations, wherever possible, just stop the chuck, and you know that you're not going to crash into a moving object. So yeah, just thought I'd shout that one out, guys. Whenever you're working on a lathe, just think carefully. Think there's sharp objects, you've got a rotating object. You know, keep yourself away from any moving parts when it's running. It is a dangerous machine, much the same as a milling machine, surface grinders. Any machine that's got rotating, you know, heavy objects can hurt you. So just be careful. But yeah, that's my bit for the health and safety police, and we'll go from there. Well, there we are, guys. Sorry to throw that bit in on the end, but I suppose it's got to be said. I do 101 things that an apprentice would get slapped across the back of the head for. Not that you're allowed to slap an apprentice across the back of the head anymore, but I can assure you I had a few as a young lad. But yeah, I do some things that are not strictly great practice, and just think safe at all times. When you're hugely experienced, you know what you can do, and I'm constantly thinking, you know, what if this, what if that, looking at where I am. It's all second nature to me, but as a beginner, just think careful all the time. Anyway, that's that. Done. Right. Well, I hope you enjoyed this Shed Talk 19.5, and I hope you all think that you know, the plan C, I think I prefer it. There's 101 ways to do this. I mean, the industry standard is the nut on the top. I never really liked it, so I thought I'd come up with something new. I do like my plan C. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for subscribing, and we'll see you all very soon. Cheers now.